We have proof of publications in your books, starting on page 1. We have a quorum with the full board present. Under additions and deletions, Officer Smith has another engagement. He asked if we can go ahead and move his item up to the beginning of the meeting. If nobody has an objection to that, I'll go ahead and make that as a change to the agenda. We good? All right. So we will move Martin County Sheriff Office up to first item after minutes.
And normally we need a motion and a second for that.
Yeah, can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Approval of the minutes of the September 7th, 2023 board meeting. I'll let you guys know that I was already pointed out some flipping of some letters on Commissioner Marino's name. I'd already printed the book, so I will make that correction in the final version. It's still incorrect here. Are there any other changes that anybody else noticed that need to be made?
I would have one that normally I'd ignore, but since you're changing it anyway, and that would be to context. In the second paragraph, it said something about my thoughts would be no construction, don't drain the swamp. To put that in context, it would be in the absence of a plan of development.
Now, which section are you talking about? Was it in board member comments?
Yes.
All right, so we're on page
I believe that probably
7. Okay, so page 7, Mr. Cutting, the second paragraph. And you're saying, all right, so yeah, I see about midway down the paragraph, to keep the water clean, not to drain or build.
That's it. I just want to be clear that I'm not saying we ignore our directives to drain this, but in the absence of a plan of development, you know, what does that really mean? And I believe that applies to Ms. Marino's comments as well, as far as,
Well, we do have a water control plan, and it's been amended, and the engineer can elaborate on that.
Move approval of the minutes with the additions.
As amended?
Second.
Amended, yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and move up to status report, Martin County Sheriff's Office. Officers, did he just walked out? Really? Okay. Then we will go ahead and, while we wait for him to come back, we'll go ahead and move on to old business item number 1, discussion of potential extensive survey and district easements and right-of-ways. I'll remind the board at the last meeting, a couple of meetings now, we've been talking about the possible need in the future to do a very extensive survey to kind of clean up some of the questions regarding rights-of-ways and easements and what have you. Mr. Higgins gave an approximate estimate of very rough ballpark, could be 50,000. He was going to see if he could get anybody to give him any kind of more of a narrow estimate.
Yes, good morning. I need a better definition of what exactly the board is looking for. We can start with what's the purpose, and then we can say, okay, this is what needs to be surveyed, because you got to remember, you know, that one map that shows all of the easements. I mean, there's roadway easements that crisscross all of the, let's say, developed or sold part of Palmar. But I'm not sure if the board really cares about those access easements as much as you care about easements where it contains a canal or a levee. I think if you're going to do a survey, I would survey canals and levees, and that's it.
I'd like to add a comment if I may, but I see Officer Smith just came in, if we want to pause for a minute. And
Well, I think we can go ahead and finish this item, and then we'll get to him next. Yeah.
I'll try to be quick so that I don't unduly delay him. I brought a poster board to kind of address exactly the question you just brought up, which is what what are we surveying? And let's put a little definition to that. For what it's worth here. The bottom line suggests, and this is only the first right turn going north along sections 11 and 12, I believe. Okay, it is described as a 50-foot allocation of an easement. It says you can put this, that, and the other thing. Ingress, egress, works of the district, and telephone poles, as I remember. So my question is when we're asking to do a survey, maybe the definition should first be, what is the works of the district? How much of that 50-foot space is required for our engineer to sign, stamp, and seal this levee as a structure? You're assuming I want to be heard.
Or be recorded, so I wanted you to-
All right, just to refresh, we have 50-foot available. We have an obligation as a district to put a protective levee. How much of that 50-foot is required? And do we use the engineer's guidance to first establish how much of that easement is required? And then we go about the purpose of surveying it, talking about how we reshape the dirt that is washed down this levee into people's driveways, which I believe TJ will further clarify. Yeah, not driveways, my apologies, not driveways, but have washed down into pathways that have been created off of the levee. So anyway, that would be, I guess a motion would be, how much of the recorded easement is required for the Palmar Water Control District levee, and directing our engineer to establish that?
I'm not understanding. I would think all of it. If it's
Yeah,
50
I would,
feet, it's
I
50.
would recommend keeping all of any Palmar easements,
Right,
whether it's used or not.
I agree.
All 50 foot.
Yes.
Then, by the engineer's recommendation, is the Palmar works of the district.
Yes.
To be perfectly clear about that.
Yeah, and you're making it a little bit more cloudy, because some of this stuff is topographic survey, where I thought the intent was to identify those easements, and that's it. Just identify where they are. Because if you start getting into topography, how high is the berm, how deep is the canal, that amplifies the cost by double and triple.
That definition, though, would be the directive that the district would work by. What is the district responsible for? What are we surveying? What property is the district? And again, if you've said it's all 50 feet, part of the intent of the survey is to determine where our maintenance costs go. So topographically speaking, if you suggest that that berm height is 1 foot or 2 foot, we have a wash concern where the vegetation has been stripped away, and the height of that berm is, I don't know, it varies all over the place depending on how much rain and how much traffic it sees. So again, going back to our financial responsibility to restore this particular berm and to survey it and understand it, I think all of that is important and relevant. Now, whether we take it one small section at a time, the first 3 lots in, and do a cross-sectional examination, and provide a minimal budget to establish that, we could then go forward and say, okay, based on what I see on this first lot and the continuing 6 miles, the potential financial impact to the district is X. And that would allow us to kind of make our decision as to how much money we would have to spend either restoring, repairing or improving the district to the standard that you establish?
Well, a lion's share of the maintenance occurs all as part of the mowing contracts. And that identifies where there is ruts that need to be filled in. And typically, that's where it gets identified and that can be repaired. There's no specified height of the maintenance berm. Nor is there a specified width. It's just that it's sitting adjacent to the canal. And in fact, there's supposed to be a maintenance berm on both sides of the canal, both sides, that are accessible. But again, that starts getting into more of the maintenance survey as opposed to the legal survey of where all of these canals, where the levees, et cetera. Two different surveys.
Understood. I guess one of the things that I'm looking for is defined definition for what we are financially responsible for maintaining and the impacts that occur to that portion, as well as the protections that we may utilize to make sure that the property owners' pro rata shares are preserved and, appropriately and properly applied to the easement or to the.
Starting point for that is identifying the legal boundaries of each easement. And it doesn't mean that the canal is sitting perfectly in the middle, but it's the starting point.
So, Mr. Higgins, you think that if we do the legal survey of the easements, that's about a $50,000 contract?
I won't even venture to guess. I will, with some direction, I will go get a price for that.
Yeah, that's all I'm interested in right now, is just getting a legal survey of the boundaries of the easements.
Could we perhaps start with 3 lots along the line that might perhaps suggest what is typical, and then from there go further? Would that help us?
I'm not sure anything is typical in there.
No.
Right.
And I really think that, in my notes and what I was looking for when I asked this was, what are the district boundaries and the district easements? And where are the culverts that the district is responsible for?
That's fine. That's a defined scope.
That was what I was looking for when I asked this question.
All right. So Mr. Higgins now has, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you need a motion, I'm so moved, and I think that's a good place to start, and start the conversation. And then as we get that information, we can go further and get more information and probably end up where you want to be.
All right, so to make sure I got the motion right, so the motion is to have Mr. Higgins obtain an estimate to get the legal survey of the boundaries of the district's easements and locations
The culverts.
of the culverts and canals.
A question, if I could, please? Hungry Land is in Palmar. Palmar's not in Hungry Land. So are we talking about just the areas where the private property is, or are we going to move further out, including areas that include Old Indian Town Road, Hungry, and just where the private properties are?
Just within, we're not encompassing the entire thing. This is just the works of the district.
Which some of them
Some of them are in
exist.
Hungry Land.
Are in- yeah.
Some of them
Correct, but
exist
not-
within Hungry Land.
Within Hungryland, correct. But there's also, we're not going outside the scope of the works of the district.
Right.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
I think so, yes, thanks.
I'm with additional clarity here, geographically specific, region by region, whether it is the chimney first, whether it is, let's call it gate 1 first, et cetera. Would we be able to limit the survey section at a time in order to basically control cost and stage this along?
We'll find out from Mr.
I-
Higgins?
I think to have a complete survey, we need to do the whole thing,
Yeah.
so not just,
And if you're going to have them out there, you might as well.
And as a reminder, there may be works in the district that is sitting on an easement that's not specifically dedicated to Palmar, nor Rotunda, the predecessor. But I want to try and capture every easement that contains a levee or canal.
correct.
All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Stokes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Officer Smith?
Morning.
Where to start? Any questions?
Yeah, was there some activity last month?
Luckily, very little. And I think that was greatly due to the heat and lack of water. Over the last week and a half, lots more water, less heat, more activity. The only activity that we've really seen on a normal scale, I wouldn't say a large scale, is hunting season is open, so there's a lot of people hunting. But as far as ATV, UTV riding, I was there Sunday, and maybe 10 or 15 people, that were actively riding. A lot of people out there hunting, and when I say hunting, going to tree stands at different locations within the property, and as far as we know, hunting legally and doing their thing. This is the time of year when we're going to start seeing more and more activity with just people going riding, whether it be family or a group of friends, whatever. As things cool off, there's water now, and they want water. They don't want to ride around in the desert, obviously. But this is the time of year when it starts getting busier. So we'll see how that portion of the season goes. Hopefully it goes as well as it has the last 3 or 4 months, and we don't have any issues. Berry season's over, so the complaints in reference to berry pickers going from the east side to the center to the chimney and back and forth, all those complaints have stopped, so we don't have any issues with berry pickers at this point.
Was there a, I remember seeing some crime scene tape, not that there was a crime, but there was one of the gates closed for some reason during the month?
No, that was on Hungryland at the parking area across the street.
Okay,
Not related to Palmar at all.
perfect, okay. Anybody else have
How
questions?
many citations or tickets were issued since our last meeting?
No citations at all. I spoke on Sunday. We spoke with several people that were riding along the roads and or on private property with no issues. We were talking earlier about where the swimming hole is, and I think TJ's going to have some photos of that later. I set up a camera on the swimming hole to see what kind of activity was there. I left it there about 3 days to see if we had people driving their buggies in and stuff, because you can see some activity, but not a great deal. And in those 3 days, lots of people went in, washed off, got in the water themselves and cleaned off, but they never drove their vehicle in. I had to remove the camera when somebody obviously found my camera and started messing with my camera, so I had to go get it before we either had it shot or stolen or whatever. And that's one of our biggest concerns from the sheriff's office side is stop the people that have done damage in the past to the canals by driving their buggies, four-wheelers, whatever, into the canals, getting in the canals, swimming, that kind of thing. And we haven't encountered that activity in several months. We actually, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, back in April, end April, 1st of May, there was a large group of people gathered at the canal head where the swimming hole is. There's probably 40 people there that day. And we made it very clear, this is what is going to happen. If you want to be the example that goes to jail, then you do this. because we're going to make somebody an example if it continues. At that point, we pretty much have, I wouldn't say eliminated, but we have drastically slowed down the activity with them running into the canals with the buggies and stuff like that.
Thanks. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one question that I'm going to relate to the request for an agenda item for next month, but your input would be rather valuable. Collection of shells representative of what occurs at Gate 7N. One could also go to Gate 7N and you'll see holes, maybe not quite as big as my pinky, but 300 caliber or bigger, punched through 3/8 steel. There's a 308 Win Mag, there's 556, 223. The distance from Gate 7 to where TJ will be driving his truck by is approximately 2,500 feet. Your expertise, will one of these shells lethally carry 2,500 feet?
Any number one of those shells could.
All right, thank you, and that's, you confirmed it for the agenda item I'll bring up later, or bring it up now, at your discretion.
Well, if it's in reference to safety, I think we should do it now.
I believe so too. I think we have a very, very pressing threat to the life of TJ or his vehicle. This, let's say, 3/8 steel holes through that, your truck is like nothing compared to that. Can we appeal to FWC, Martin County Sheriff's Office, and the landowner in that case would be South Florida Water Management District, to post some kind of an informational sign that says, you know, please don't shoot in this direction, or you
Would love it.
could be a felony if you shoot in this direction.
I want a sign as big as that wall at all those locations out there that say that. I would love it. So here's, I have a little bit of knowledge in this area with dealing with South Florida Water Management, the hunting that's allowed in Hungry Land. So evidently, there's a clause, there's some kind of loophole in their rules that allow people to target practice on their property when hunting season is in.
Target practice on,
South Florida Water Management property. So you can go to Gate 4, the very end of the trail, Gate 4. I don't know if it's
And
north.
absolutely, another real popular spot.
Very, very popular spot. I've been there with FWC officers when we drove up, and there's 4 or 5 people out there target practicing with pistols. I'm like, hey, we got some shooters. He goes, yeah, we can't touch them. It's hunting season, and they can have a gun here, and they can shoot. And I'm like, okay. They're not actively hunting. And it's just one of our loopholes. So I don't know, and as far as I know, that's been 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know that they've addressed that issue in their rules. That's their land to regulate, because South Florida has given FWC the authority to regulate and create rules on that property. So we would have to kind of boot, and I hate to say it this way, but boot it to them and say, hey, can you make a rule, or can we enforce a different rule?
That'd be a great question. Gosh, I'm going from memory, but the statutes related to hunting and careless discharge of a projectile and trespass by projectile may actually apply from a sheriff's standpoint versus FWC? That's a question. I mean, if somebody launches a projectile over the works of the district and private property of somebody who happens to own a piece of property north of Gate 7, is that trespass by projectile?
No, sir, it's
No?
not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's not.
If they're
I've-
hunting even.
Even if you're hunting. So, well, if you're hunting, if I can articulate that somebody shot over a property line in the effort to try to harvest a game animal, a turkey, a deer, hogs do not apply, but it has to be in the process of trying to harvest a game animal. Then it's felony trespassing by projectile. If it is merely shooting, then we would have to articulate that it was a hazard, prove who was shooting, and that they created an unsafe environment beyond the scope of that shot. It's a challenge at the very least.
So informational sign and perhaps a request to FWC to post a camera up there might serve as a deterrent and safety aid for our.
We might be able, so FWC can, and in this case, I'm not sure if it would be an FWC rule or a South Florida Water Management rule. South Florida Water Management rules, they have their own book of rules, and I think they can make their own rules for their property. So if they created a rule saying that there is no target practice on our properties, period, no matter what season it is, then I think it can be enforced. And FWC, through their commission, has the ability to create laws that does not have to go through state legislature. It goes through their commission. I personally think that's the easiest way to accomplish the task of them shooting on Hungry Land or other properties that are owned by South Florida Water Management. Because otherwise, we would have to we'd have to have somebody amend the 790 statute, which would have to go through Tallahassee and state legislature such as that.
Speaking above my pay grade now, but I'm going to defer this to legal. And with the motion, if somebody else would like to articulate more clearly a motion to direct this to FWC via our attorney for the request of a sign, et cetera.
Well, I'll have to hear the motion first, but I think what the issue is whether or not FWC and maybe the Water Management District can amend their rules to enforce shooting on their property. Let me ask you something, Deputy. Aren't the shotgun shells or the bullet casings, aren't they a hazard on some level? Isn't the lead in the shots a hazard on some level? And if so, is that your hazard? And can these things be also enforced as under the litter law? Because I'm sure people aren't picking up their shells, as Mr. Cutting has
Very
brought examples
possibly,
of.
yes. I'm sorry, very possibly, yes. So if they're leaving, FWC on their properties, especially during duck season or dove season, if a group of hunters goes out and they come back with 10 ducks, they want to see 10 empty shells. They want you to police your shells. And if you don't have 10 empty shells or something close to it, they'll write you a ticket for the littering. And without seeing the littering occur. So in this case, because we're talking about target practicing, we would probably have to catch the person shooting, watch them shoot, watch them leave without picking up or policing their brass or shells.
I'm going to add one quick comment. 298.66 regards to the works of the districts and damage thereto. Would this same deposition of lead that you speak of be damage to the works of the district? If it accumulated to the point where, like in the case of some organized shooting ranges, have had to do lead remediation because of all the shot that was deposited.
Right, you do hear about that a lot if there's a lot of lead in the soil or groundwater. So I would ask the engineer to opine on whether or not there's enough lead in the ground to constitute a hazard or damage to the works of the district.
Well, certainly, when it comes to target ranges, they do classify the berm as being hazardous. That's containing all of the shells, the lead. In order to clean up a target range, they've got to remove all of that soil. And there's no other way to clean it up. And just as a point as it relates to the Water Management District, they don't have a set, they've got general rules applying to their land ownership, but where the specific regulations come into play is in the lease. And there's a lease between FWC and the Water Management District, and that's where they would spell it out exactly how target shooting would be handled, or obviously hunting is allowed.
Well, hunting is allowed during hunting season, but what about when it's not hunting season? Then can we post signs prohibiting target practice or?
Well,
When's
the last
hunting
I
season?
knew, the sheriff's department, and you could probably address this, has been very helpful to various landowners, telling them this is exactly how you set up a target on your own property that you want to use for target shooting, which is a very good tool to keep the various landowners from just wide open shooting, wild west.
Well, just to touch on that a little bit, so from the sheriff's office aspect, me specifically, anytime somebody calls or flags me down when I'm at Palmar or any other property for that goes in the county, what they'll say, hey, I'm told that I have to have an adequate backstop. What's adequate? Well, there's no definition in state statute for adequate. And I can't give, let's say I say your adequate is 40 feet tall, and they put in a 40-foot berm and somehow shoot over that berm and shoot somebody on the other side, that leaves the sheriff's office in a very libelous position as well as myself. So we're not going to get into the trick bag of saying adequate is a 20-feet berm if you're shooting from 20 yards, because we don't know the proficiency of the person shooting, so therefore we're just going to say you need an adequate backstop for the activity that you're doing to make it safe. And we can't determine that because there's no definition in the 790 statute that says what adequate is. There's no specific size. I've even went to the point of there's many commercial backstops out there. They're expensive, but there are commercial backstops for shooting out there. I tell them all the same thing. There's commercial backstops out there for shooting that are guaranteed to stop whatever you're shooting. That's what I would do if I were you. And that's my advice to them when somebody flags me down, whether it's Palmar or any other community or any other area of the county. Google search commercial backstops for gun ranges or something like that. You'll get a bunch of different commercial applications that would apply. Because we can't obviously say it's adequate backstop here. There's no way, without me knowing the proficiency of everybody that's shooting there, there's no way I could say it was adequate.
I'm going to just bring it back to one quick thought then at 298.66, as well as I had to read IFAS's publication on fences and easement law, and one of the notions in there, if I understood correctly, was we have an obligation, if we have an easement for district works over somebody's property, to protect that property owner from damages that may occur. That as long as we have the ability to control that damage, we need to do it. If we don't do it, we might have some liability. So the question really becomes at this point with deposits of lead, does a landowner consider that to be a problem? Would future remediation, would even, the littering of lead create a problem? And that puts it back to 298.6 and whether there's backstops or, safety involved or not. It really becomes, do we have a duty as the district to prevent misuse of the works of the district and subsequential damage to the property owners that contain our easement or works?
Very possibly. I don't know, and this would be a question for somebody else. I don't know who regulates or who determines how much lead is too much lead. I assume it would be DEP or EPA or one of those entities that would have to determine that. I know I don't have any way to determine how much lead is too much lead.
I agree, and I don't really want to get into that definition. All I want to do is put up a sign that says,
And
please don't shoot TJ.
I
Some way, shape, or
completely, I'm out there, me and my partner are out there probably, other than the people that are quasi living out there, are out there more than anybody else.
Don't shoot Officer Smith, or
I would put a picture of me up there with my truck or side by side, don't shoot this.
I've personally ridden my bicycle back there and have had to stop and wait for the shooting to subside, or pick an alternate route that lets me view what's going on so I can get there. I mean, it's real. It's, it's danger.
There are several people, Chimney, middle section, and east side, that shoot on a weekly basis. I will go as far as say weekly basis. I can tell you that anytime I hear shooting, I'm there and I hear shooting, I go to that shooting to determine who it is, where they're at, and we know certain people shoot at targets. So we get close, oh, that's that guy that owns that property there. He's sighting in another rifle for his daughter or whatever. Or that's the guy that has the little range on the canal and drives his little Lexus car in there all the time. We have gotten to, we can hear where the shots are coming from, go to that area and pretty much identify who they are right off. We have never had a bad encounter with somebody shooting. We have had reports of, going back 3 years ago, to the cows being shot. I think I identified who that was, couldn't prove it, but we haven't had any issues since from that particular camp, because me and FWC questioned him, and we did a months-long investigation to try and figure that one out. And then the barn that got shot in Trailside, obvious problems. We identified what Jason and I identified what property the shot came from that hit the barn due to trajectory, and the only way it had to be somewhere in this corridor. It couldn't get there any other way. But it could have come from Trail 1 berm. It could have came from 200 yards inside that property. It could have, you know what I mean? There's no way of determining who was the actual person that pulled the trigger.
Is it aimed like this or like this? Is a
Correct.
distance of miles.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Question, please. May I? Don't we already have a statute that prohibits shooting across roadways, easements, and so on in the state of Florida?
There are statutes for roadways. Unfortunately, Trail 1 is not an established roadway. It is an easement.
And easements are not in the statutes.
I've never read an easement as being in statute, but you still have the property line issue and neglect. So if we have an unsafe environment being presented because you don't know what's beyond your target and you're not shooting at something, we may be able to articulate that there is a crime there and charge somebody accordingly. I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, we had a shooting in Indiantown where 5 guys were shooting at a berm at targets. One of those 5 fired a round that traveled approximately 230, 240 yards and struck a woman in the shoulder. Luckily, she lived. We couldn't make an arrest because we couldn't prove which one of the 5 was holding the gun when the trigger was pulled to that specific projectile that hit that victim. So we unfortunately couldn't make an arrest in that situation. That does not relieve people from civil liabilities and things like that, but from the criminal standpoint, we went to the very end trying to make an arrest on a case like that because obviously it's an unsafe condition.
Okay, so where are we headed with this conversation? Are we proposing something?
May I, Officer? Can we acknowledge somebody from the audience that stuck up their hand and wanted to?
I just have a quick question. It might not mean anything, but in terms of, this is Michael Houston.
I was going to say, please identify yourself, Michael.
Senior Project Manager for Martin County. So aren't FWC rules and Water Management District rules prohibit hunting from within 1,000 feet of private property?
In some cases, yes. I know that on the southeast side of Hungryland, there is a safety zone between where you can hunt legally in Hungryland and Ranch Colony. I don't know that I can tell you there is not a safety zone on the Palomar border that I'm aware
And
of.
I'm not speaking specifically to the Palomar Board. I'm talking about if they have those rules within private properties in general, then couldn't we tell them and have them limit hunting within 1,000 feet of the private properties within Palomar?
I would think so. I don't see why it never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
Well, I
that's-
think before we make a motion, we need to find out better what the rules of engagement are for FWC and South
you're
Florida
using-
Water Management District. Because we can't make a motion if we really don't know what we're making a motion for.
Sure.
And you're using the word hunting. Not-
Hunting or
Not shooting. You're using the word hunting.
Well, then the question is, like, in those areas that are prohibited by FWC, is it just shooting or is it hunting? Because I think it would be shooting in general.
Is practicing to hunt a portion of hunting. Now we're getting way out there, but,
Again, I think we need to bring this to a close. We're like getting into the weeds and whatnot, but I think a conversation with South Florida Water Management and the FWC on the rules and regulations and how they apply and what we might or might not be able to do is, before we make a motion of what it is we want, we have to actually realize what it is we can and can't do.
if I may, just add one thing. Do we have the ability to spend district funds to develop an informational sign that may help project TJ?
I would definitely say yes to that.
Okay, so that would be, I don't know,
I
part of the agenda
notice-
item or
notice
the
is
motion?
not- Notice, especially when it has to do with safety, is always something that will be within our purview. And I hope I'm not jumping to conclusions incorrectly. I'm looking at our attorney.
All right.
No, what I believe that the district has to do is maintain its works of the district. And to the extent that trying to maintain those works is, safety is paramount. So if people are going to use that, if people are going to use the berms, maybe it's just TJ Mansell, or maybe it's the mower. You still have to make sure that it's safe.
So I think a continued conversation with FWC and South Florida on what is hunting, what is shooting, and whatnot is more apropos at this time before we make a motion of any kind, because we've gone in 27 different directions. So I don't even know where we would make a motion for what.
So what I might suggest, which is something that we did for a whole different reason in the past, and I don't know, Officer Smith, if you maybe have a good contact for this, but would you know of somebody that we could try to set up a meeting with South Florida / FWC, and then at the same time maybe have a designated board member there? I can be there. I don't know if the attorney or the engineer need to be there. That I don't know in this type of situation that they would need to be there or not. But would you know people that would be, for this particular conversation, that would be able to at least give us a better idea of what we can try to do under the,
Absolutely. I would contact FWC, Tom,
Tom Reinhardt, okay.
and at South Florida Water Management, I would probably contact
Ray Palmer.
Ray Palmer or Ryan Cowart. Brian Cowart.
Ryan Coward?
Brian.
Oh, Brian Coward.
And if you need those numbers, I have them in my office. I can.
You can just shoot me an email.
Yep.
Brian Coward. All right, yeah, if you have those, I would ask the board, I can try to set up that meeting. We're getting into October, November, December, so I'll see how quickly I can set up that meeting. But I could set up that meeting. I'll try to make sure that Officer Smith is available for that meeting, and then would there be a specific board representative that you would want to be at that meeting? Just so we can ask the questions, and then we can come back to the board and maybe at that point have a better idea of what we could even try to make a motion for.
Can we do this a little perhaps more informally and more directly? Reach out to the contacts we have with a simple email and ask them to explore it. And then if a meeting is necessary, let's go in that direction.
All right, so direction of the board is to email Tom and Brian, and I'll get that information from Officer Smith. And maybe if you want to send me, when you send me the contacts, kind of the right questions to ask them for what we're looking at, and then it can come from my email, so it's coming from Palmar, but at least if you kind of direct me with the right questions to ask, because I'm going to be completely honest, I am not a hunter, I'm not a shooter, I don't own a gun, so I don't know the particulars of what I'm trying to get to ask. And then we can send the email, and if those gentlemen believe we need a meeting, we can go from there. But I can at least, and I'll copy Mr. Cutting on that email, and that'll be kind of the group that we'll go with from here. And
I
our
think
district-
Ruth needs to be part of the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too. And the reason is, Mr. McElligott, because, you're talking about interpretation of rules and policies, and I'm not trying to suggest that only lawyers can do that by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh,
but,
I don't want to do it.
But, if it comes down to, interpretation of legal documents, and what this will be, and whether or not rules, whether or not maybe the Water Management District or FWC should amend rules or maybe modify, previous interlocal agreements between the agencies to accomplish what needs to be done out there, then I think it's best to, maybe even MCSO, legal advisor should be there as well, for the same reason.
Absolutely loop
We need,
Bernie in.
we need clarity,
Yeah,
Right.
and none of us can interpret the law.
right.
Absolutely.
Do I want to?
So we'll start with this email. I'll copy the parties that we mentioned here, and then from that email, if a meeting needs to happen, we'll coordinate with those entities. Is that?
And Ruth being,
Absolutely. No, I've got Ruth on here, yeah.
And I'll reach out to the General Counsel's office at the Water Management District too, because I'm sure one of their lawyers would want to be involved in
Okay.
any conversation about this.
yeah, at some point in time, this is going to be all lawyers.
So, so Ruth, will you email me whoever after you talk to your contact, and that way I can include them in the email when I send the email to the whole group? Or, okay.
And so while you say representation from, you don't need any of us there. Ruth is really who should be
That's fine.
asking the questions.
Yeah. Like I said, in the past, they've always wanted a board member representative there to come back and speak on the experience, but I'm fine if you guys
Well, I
don't
think
need to
if-
be
I
there.
think
That's
if
fine.
we have our counsel there, I think that's the best.
That's enough. All right. Well, again, and we're starting with an email. We'll see if it leads to a meeting, but we'll start with the email and see where we can go from there. Okay.
I would like to make one quick and easy motion because the legalese that we speak of could put us months down the road. And that is that we expend approximately $80 of district funds to put up an informational-only sign that says, please do not shoot in this direction, or some such wording that our lawyer deems as acceptable. And so motions?
Do we have
You can make a motion, yes.
Yeah, my motion would
an
be,
informational sign to protect TJ? I'm sure, and even though I'm board chair, I'm not supposed to do this, but I will second, and I think everybody would be okay with that.
Okay, so motion to commission a sign, and I believe TJ's in the past has been able to get signs for us made, so you've got a contact for that.
No, I didn't get them.
Okay.
You all got them for the other one, for at the end of the canals.
Right.
I drive around with my lights on, and these are just irresponsible people. Shooting down these roads.
All right, so we'll motion from the board to commission a sign to post at is there a specific location, Gate 7? Was there something?
we'll limit it to Gate 7 in so we can drive a
Okay.
stake through this issue right now. But as a further agenda item, I think there's other areas that TJ might find
And,
appropriate.
and just to reiterate what TJ said, TJ, you need to, because we're recording this, you need to come to a mic when you talk. No, no, no. No, I appreciate it. And just to reiterate, the signs will be on mic to get done. And it's, again, for safety of anybody traversing the works of the district.
And I'll get, Ruth, you'll be able to give me some language for that. I don't know, I mean, other than, I'm not sure what, because we're not making a legal statement, so I'm not sure. as
What
far
is
as
the purpose of the signage?
Just to
just to-
ask nicely.
Inform the general public that maintenance personnel or law enforcement officials may be present on the roadway beyond this point.
No roadway.
Please use caution.
It works for the district.
Yeah.
Works for the district. Thank you very much.
Do it in one spot.
I think this is, I'm not sure one spot is effective. I think it should be where the gates are.
There's a lot of it.
There is. I'm just trying to make this kind of come to a quick conclusion while we explore it further on down the road. And there's other informational signs that may help TJ as well, which I see he has taken upon himself to post in some areas, which again, they're informational. They're not necessarily a legal standpoint. He's just trying to tell people, please consider this or that.
Right, and I just want to caution everybody, you don't want to assume that people are going to be using works of the district for ingress and egress with your signage, because that, of course, could play into the hands of somebody who's trying to force that issue in circuit court.
So where do we go from here?
You just want to be careful with your signage. You don't want to assume that you're telling people, you don't want to make it an invitation for people to use your works of the district for ingress and egress.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Okay.
So where are we?
So yeah, how about to say, I'm still struggling with what the sign actually says.
I'll tell you what, why don't we just think about it? I do think I'd want to get with Mr. Higgins on this and make sure that we're not doing anything that, we want to be consistent with the water control plan, we want to be consistent with the works of the district, and we don't want to make it an invitation for folks to ingress and egress, as far as what I understand. And why don't, for the next month, for the next meeting, we come back and discuss what the sign ought to be, and let the board make the final decision on that.
So I'll remove my second, so the motion dies, and then we can discuss it again next month.
All right, so, yeah, so direction to bring back agenda item regarding possible signage, possible safety signage. Perfect.
Thank you. Anything else?
Unless there's any other question.
I know you have to leave, so thank you for allowing us your time this morning.
No worries.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're at status reports now, right?
New we're
Yeah, no, we're jumping back to new business.
Okay.
All right, so new business item number 1, consider resolution 2023-03, which is adopting the fiscal year 2022-2023 amended budget. So as a refresher for those who have been on the board and those that are new to the board, part of what we have to do in our budget process every year is we obviously have to approve during the summer. We usually approve the budget for the upcoming year, which just started on October 1st. And then within 60 days of the end of the fiscal year, which is 9/30, we are to approve an amended budget. That amended budget is basically just a look back at what we did, saying, yep, that's what we did, and this is where we sit kind of from a fund balance standpoint. This budget is in the board's books on page 11. Basically, the gist of it is the column on all the way to the right shows year-to-date actual income and expenses from 10/1/22 to 9/29/23. We specifically leave that one day open because we may still get a straggling invoice from somebody, halfway through October or sometimes even into the beginning of November. So while this isn't definitively final, for the most part, we know that this is a very good representation of where we're going to end up at the end of the year. What we're asking the board to approve is actually the middle column bolded, and you'll see that if you come almost all the way down to the bottom, when you see net excess/shortfall, for this year, because of the large influx of past due assessments, we're showing a net excess of $1,723,000. The budget that we're asking the board to approve only shows a net excess of $1,676,000. So that difference in approximately $50,000, what that is that's the amount that we have coverage for any straggling invoices that we have not received to date. In this district, $50,000 is probably more than enough, but just to cover ourselves, because you don't want to audit findings saying you under budgeted your amended budget, we over-exaggerate how much more we think might come in the next couple of weeks. So at the end of the day, the The middle column is what we're asking you to approve. If there's any questions about any specific line items, I'd be happy to answer them. And then for informational purposes, at the very bottom, you'll see that as of right now, we're projecting our total funds at the end of the fiscal year at 9/30/23 in the bank to be approximately $1.9 million. Is there any specific questions?
Commissioner Marino? Yeah. Well, not a line item. It is listed as maintenance contingency of $12,000. Are we in some way governed or restricted by that contingency? For example, if we highlighted an area that needed $20,000 worth of fill or movement of fill or repairs, does it restrict us from doing that in this calendar year?
So this is the calendar year that's just passed. So this is what we've already done. This is
We're
for,
approving last year.
we're kind of closing out the year that just ended. This isn't what we approve for next year.
Very good.
As a note, you can always, if you have the funds available, you can expend those funds if they are above your budget. What will happen is when we get to the amended budget next year, we would, during the amendment process, we would increase. If we budgeted 12,000 but spent 20, we would bring that budget up to 20. You can do that as long as you have funds in the bank. Currently, we have plenty of funds in the bank, so
All right. Thank you very much.
no problem.
Do I have a motion to accept the amended final budget?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to new business item number 2, consider approval of the Torsivia Donlin Godot and Rubin contract. This is the contract for your new district attorney. You'll recall at the last meeting, the board approved the proposal. This is just putting basically that proposal into a formal document that the board can approve so that we can have it on the books. I'll turn it over to your district attorney. I looked it over briefly. It looks pretty standard. I don't think there's anything crazy in here, but I'll let your district attorney go over anything that she wants to highlight or point out.
Thank you, Mr. McElligott. So this agreement for legal services reflects the proposal that the firm sent to you all last month for your review. So if there's anything in here, it is pretty standard. It has your the standard public records language in there, the E-Verify language, all the things that you have to have when you're contracting with a public agency. However, I do want to make sure that you're aware of with lawyers and anybody who bills by the hour, that's where the rubber meets the road a lot of times when you have a budget and you have, fees that you have to pay for hourly work. So I just want to make you aware of that, make sure that meets your expectations.
I have no questions.
Yeah, what was the previous per hour for our previous legal? What were we paying?
I do not know. I know that Mary had a rate increase a couple years ago, maybe within the last 2 or 3 years. I would have to go back and check to see what that actual per hour was.
It appears that based on the detailed report you provided us last month, she charged us $5,640.14 for the meeting. So
So-
I think we're getting 50% off because there's only one attorney sitting over there versus two.
Right. Well, and I believe with Mary's, it's not just the hours of the meeting, but it's also any hours that went into prep for the meeting. So again, I don't know exactly how many hours that 5,000 encompasses, but like I said, I'd have to go back and check to see what the board approved a couple years ago.
That's fine, I'm comfortable with it. We're not stepping way beyond where we were.
No. I don't remember when they gave the proposal, I don't remember thinking, wow, that's considerably different than what we're already paying. It looked to be in line with what we were already paying.
Thank you.
And just one quick question on my part, playing 1,000 questions. If I have these concerns, questions, and direct them to our attorney, are we pre-budgeted for a certain amount of hours, or am I going to create an impact to the district by
Depends on the question.
Yeah. So I will let you know that in years past, the general way that the board has operated for this district has been, if you have a question, you email me. I don't charge by the hour. So that typically the questions would come to me first. If it's something I can easily get you a document that explains, or if it's something that I have knowledge of. If it's something that's more technical and is going to require either engineering research or review or legal research review, typically then we would bring that to the board to make the call on, is this something that the board wants to expend money on? The budget is there as a guide. It's not set in stone. Like once we hit the legal budget for the year, all of a sudden the attorney can't come to any more meetings. That's not how it works. But it's the board has to make that conscious decision on something that is that has not previously come up to the board.
I think I can be respective of that arrangement.
And I will say too, Supervisor Cutting, that the questions that you sent to me via email in the last couple weeks, I mean, they were good, solid legal questions, and it didn't take a lot for me to look up the answer to them. So, I would say that I am available to each of the supervisors individually should you have a legal question that has to do with Palmar Water Control District. I'm not saying don't run it by Michael first. It's just that, I want to make sure that I'm responsive to each of you. And if there's a legal question there, I'll do my best to answer it. If I think it's more of an administrative question, I'll definitely flip it over to Michael, or if it's an engineering question, to Mr. Higgins. So just so you know.
Perfect. I'm just conscious of my $48 per month expenditure for my property and everybody else's for that matter.
Move approval of the contract for district attorney.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0. All right, status reports. Legal, oh, sorry?
I see that there's an agreement for the maintenance supervisor contract?
Yeah, I was
Is that
gonna
new
get to,
business?
I was gonna get to that. I didn't make a separate agenda item for that, and I apologize for that. So I was gonna bring that up during my status report.
Okay.
So we're almost there. Legal status report. Was there anything additional, Ruth, that you wanted to talk about?
No, just for the maintenance supervisor contract, I put that together earlier this week or late last week, and provided it to Michael for today's discussion. It is a draft, so so there are a few things that I wasn't sure exactly what the board's direction was for Mr. Mansell's services. So, for example, is Mr. Mansell going to do just supervisory work and then subcontract out mowing and those types of, minor repairs? I don't know the answer to that. So those types of things, we can definitely edit, modify what you see in there right now. And also, I didn't know what he was going to charge for his supervisory work. So just so you know.
So I can let you know. So the proposal that the board approved at the last meeting for Mr. Mansell, I believe it was $65 an hour for the supervisory work, and that was based on an 8-hour week. And for special emergency cases, same $65 an hour, but with a 3-hour minimum if we had to call him for something outside of the normal kind of weekly operation that he does. So the hours don't change, the $65 per hour don't change. It's just if it's outside of the normal 8-hour a week, then it's a 3-hour minimum if it's additional.
Okay.
That would be, I'm assuming that would be something like if we had a hurricane and something got severely damaged and he had to go out there at a weird time or something like that. And then as far as and board, don't let me overspeak if you understood it to be different. I believe the discussion at the last board meeting was TJ is more supervisory, and that for any actual work being done in the district, that will be subcontracted out. TJ will be responsible for getting us a proposal for that work. The board is ultimately responsible for approving that proposal. But so TJ wouldn't be doing any of the physical work himself. It would just be getting the contractors in place.
And so the board is aware where all of the meat is for TJ's scope of work is on the second page of this contract, and I'm not sure why there's not a page number on there, but it's the one that's missing a page number, of course, and it's under maintenance supervisory services. So that's where, if there's anything that you don't believe that he ought to be doing or tasked with, or something ought to change, that's where you need to look.
I'm sorry, where on, the unnumbered page is
Unnumbered
actually page
It's
3.
actually, you're right, right.
The title is Maintenance Supervisor Services.
Yep, thank you. So Ruth, you put this together with previous other contracts of this nature. Is there anything that we're missing, anything more that you need to elaborate on? Are you advising us that this is the contract we should be signing?
So I think this is the contract you should be signing, but we just need to fill in the per hour charge and make sure that the scope that's under the maintenance supervisory services is accurate. So we can do that today and just and get it ready for the chair's signature.
So, Madam Chair, I've pulled the record from the last meeting, and I can give it to the, to the council, but it's $65 per hour based on 8-hour work week.
Yeah.
So, and I think there, as far as the scope, there's some, it goes into scope a little bit, but, it seems to be consistent with what you have written in the contract.
If we want, the board can approve the contract in substantial form, subject to final version by the attorney, and then we can get the contract signed. I can do it. I can email the chair the final version, and then email TJ the final version, and go from there.
And my question, TJ, would you take the mic, please? This way everybody can hear. My question to you is that at last meeting, you said that once you knew that this was going to happen, you were going to reactivate the LLC and you were going to get insurance. You need to supply both of those forms to us.
I have received both those forms.
They were done Monday after we had the meeting.
Perfect. All right. Then that was one of my highlighted questions, so I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
I haven't
Yep.
even seen what she wrote up, so I don't know what.
Okay.
So we would look for a motion to approve the contract, maintenance contract in substantial form.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All
We
in
have-
favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
And that was, Lou, you were the second. And then subject to final review. Final legal review. Great. All right, moving on to engineer status report. Mr. Higgins, anything additional?
I don't have anything specifically additional other than to give the board a heads up. I've worked as a district engineer for 15 years now, and it's time for a pay raise now that the board is fiscally whole. So I'll be bringing to the next board meeting a proposed rate increase. And it's actually the current rates are a lot below what I currently charge.
Okay.
Thank you.
So noted. And now field maintenance, which I'm not sure we have a.
Well, district manager, yeah, we'll do the district manager report real quick. The main thing that I have is we're coming up at a tricky time of the year for a lot of people as far as being in town, out of town. We have a meeting scheduled. We've already advertised a meeting for November, and that meeting would be November 2nd. And we have a meeting advertised for December. That meeting would be December 7th. Usually, and then the meeting in January, which is usually a tricky one, it would be January 4th. So at this time, I would ask the board if we want to kind of figure out, we don't have a whole lot of stuff agenda-wise for the next couple of months, but I kind of want to get a feel from the board. Do they want to have November, December, January? Is there a specific one we want to have? Are there some that we already know are going to be a problem from a scheduling standpoint? Just so we kind of know when we're sending out our emails what to expect.
When did you say the January one was?
The January is January 4th, and that one's always a tricky one because it's so early in the month. The first Thursday of the month is the 4th.
So I can say I'm available for all three of those days.
too.
I'm not available for January 4th. We have a zoning hearing, so I think that, given that we don't have a heavy lift for November, we could probably cancel November, keep December, and at December, figure out if we need January. Would that be okay with everybody?
I do have a handful of items that I would put forth as agenda items that maybe you would wish to consider first or not. And I'm going to give you one just quick topical item, and that is basically initiate discussions on a 5-year review of our water control plan and amend as necessary. And I've probably 10 topics within that I believe really require some exploration. Current condition of the works of the districts, how we're going to continue to protect them in the future, and the activities that are going on within the district right now. All basically bring a lot of questions to my mind. So
Well, things going on within the district may not necessarily be the purview of the water control district.
let me rephrase that. Things that occur within the district that place additional wear and tear to the works of the district, or liabilities, et cetera, to the landowners that we're responsible for.
Let me add to that, the requirement in the statute is for a facilities plan to be updated once every 5 years. For Palmar, there's never been a facilities plan done because there's no new facilities. And so it's meant for districts that are undergoing development and putting in new facilities. Every 5 years, it gets captured. Here, I don't see the need for a facilities report, but certainly it's up to the board to decide if they want to take the time and effort to do a facilities report.
We don't have any facilities, so why would we have a report? And we have a water control plan, and it's been amended and an amendment to the
Yes.
amendment. So I'm not sure we're doing what our obligation is, so I'm not sure that we need to do another amendment to that.
This does not affect any maintenance activities. That's totally separate. What it's meant to do is capture, okay, I put in a new canal, or I put in a new levee.
Perhaps I misunderstood it, but within the Florida statutes regarding this,
298, yes.
it says that we need to consider activities that are going on within our district. We don't have a plan of development, but we do have activities that one might consider as development. They are being actively, publicly promoted as development or as,
Well, sadly, as a board, there's nothing we can do about it. That would be something that would be instituted by Palm Beach County and Martin County in code and in enforcement.
can we address the impacts of those activities to the works of the district?
That's a maintenance activity.
So we've already have a method of
ongoing.
addressing them.
And it's my advice to the board to continue your maintenance activities to protect the assets of the Palmar District.
So we,
If the levee gets worn down due to traffic, et cetera, okay, it's up to the board to say, okay, let's bring in some fill to restore that particular roadway.
Whereas I think the facilities report would be like you built a new levee. You're talking about everything that you're talking about are effects happening to existing items that are already part of the water control plan.
okay, in a nutshell, we have no obligation then to create this 5-year review.
No,
Not if we haven't put anything new in in the last 5 years, or since the last time we did one, which this district has not. As far as I know, in the 15 years I've been here, we've never constructed anything. We've replaced and repaired existing items.
So change whatever you have over to a maintenance item and bring it back.
Absolutely.
All right, so the suggestion by the chair was cancel November, hold December, and in December, we will determine the plan for January.
Works for me.
Yes.
Sure.
Consensus, okay?
Do you need that in a motion? Okay.
You can if you want. Its direction, I think, is fine. I mean, like I've said before, we advertise for purely a cost savings matter. We advertise every month just so we don't have to go back and advertise if we decide to have a meeting. You can cancel for free. So canceling doesn't do anything. I will let the board know at the last meeting also, there was some discussion about new laws for advertising. Our office has been looking into it. We've actually talked to a couple of the attorneys at some of our other districts that we manage. The general consensus is that it appears that we might be allowed to, instead of dealing directly with the newspapers, we may be allowed to advertise through the county, either the county's website or a designated site that the county has chosen to use. Palmar creates the unique situation of being in two different counties, so we'll have to look into that. What we aren't sure yet is, will counties charge something on par with what we were already paying with the newspaper or not? I would imagine it would be cheaper. But then some counties are choosing to go with a third party to deal with these advertisements, and I don't know what those third parties. So we're actively looking into it. If it becomes in the future, it looks like we could get away with advertising cheaper through the county's provided advertising website, then I'll bring that back to the board to get that authorization. But we are actively looking into that, hopefully, because the advertisements through the newspaper are getting rather expensive.
They are.
Other than that, I have no other updates, so I would turn it over to TJ for a field maintenance report.
Try to make this as brief as possible. As far as, you have those pictures of,
I am trying, and it's not letting me pull
and that's why I was worried about.
Is it on a T drive?
Gates,
It's on the thumb drive, but it's not letting me open
You
the.
gotta go to this PC.
Oh, I got to do it on here.
I believe so.
I brought others, I went and got this one.
So we kept December.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and we're gonna skip next month. Thank you.
Correct.
As far as the shooting, anyways, I can talk about a couple of things. Down these are irresponsible people. They don't care. I've been out there since 2004. I bought land out there. I've been out there where I was in a tree stand I was parked off of the easement in the bushes, and I could hear bullets going by me down the works. And I don't know, you all are talking the legal stuff and everything like that, but to me, those works are ours as Palmar's. Those aren't the landowners. As far as people shooting down those works and everything, that might be something to think about. But I ride around with my lights on. I go out there Tuesday and Thursday and maybe Friday because people are hunting out there. I have very little talking to people. I let them do their thing. I've talked to one person out there. I was picking up a little bit of trash. And there's hardly any trash out there. It really blew my mind when I went out there, how clean it was. You know, it wasn't trashy when I was working there before, but with all these people there, I thought it would be a lot worse than it is. And I heard it was a lot worse, and it was nothing. But I'm avoiding the hunters. I'm going out there to do my job. I took some pictures. I can't take pictures of every little washout. They're out there. You know, when it rains, people drive through it, it washes out. But the bad ones is they're starting to move on over into the works, which this is a swimming hole here.
So TJ, do you want me just to bring each one up and just go
Yeah,
through each one?
Yeah, that's fine. You can start at the first one. This is where they've been driving across the canal, and that's, you can see where a side-by-side or something is back down in there. And that really got me going. You see how far, it's washed out back. You got to drive way around the washout. And that's getting worse and worse, and it's gonna get worse and worse. And whatever signage we put up there, I put some signage up there. Go ahead, the next one if you want.
Is this at the crossover culvert, TJ?
Huh?
Is this at the crossover culvert? What you're calling the swimming hole?
Yeah, right at the crossover where the culvert is.
Okay, thanks.
And this is you see the side of that crossover there where there's no grass and stuff? That's all been shaved off of that. On the other side, it's all grass. It's never been messed with. And as you can see across the way, they've made another spot for another side bite over to the left of that. No, across the way, right there. Right there. That's already, where they've been driving down that with side-by-sides. And you can go to the next one. And this is how much it's been washed out into our works right there. And pretty soon we're gonna have to do something with it. I just hope whatever we do with it, it's gonna stop them from doing the same thing. I'm sure they gotta take baths and everything. You can go to the next one. As you can see, that side's been shaved off. Go to the next one. This is the other side of that pet crossover right there, how far it's ate over into our works. And go ahead. You can go on. This is a washout down where I got across at the end of 7 North. This is me coming around. 7 North is the gate. I come up and I bought a side-by-side, and that's where I park when I take that out there. I've only used it once out there because it's hot, either too hot or it's rainy. I go there first thing in the morning to beat all this stuff. But that's where I park, is at that, and there is a lot of shooting there. A lot of people shoot there. I've taken targets that are that far off of the ground where they're shooting, and it's going right down that easement there from Hungryland. But this is at the end of there where, I would need to drive across that to get up onto the berm to go around, to the west side of out there. You can go ahead and change it. Oh, that's something I saw out there. Figured I'd throw a couple of them and go ahead and change it. Oh, there's another one. Go ahead. There's more than that. Go ahead. Right here is another washout. This is a pretty bad washout because it's so steep, and there's a driveway right there where somebody's looks like came out and they started it, and it just got worse and worse. It's not into the works yet. It's on the works, but it's not in the road yet. It's an issue that's gonna probably have to be attended. You can go ahead and change it. I put those ribbons up. I did this at the crossover too, which when I go back out there, probably everything will be gone. Go ahead and you can cross it. Go ahead. I did that. Go ahead. I did that on both sides. I went by Home Depot and got the stuff to whatever to do there. I just wanted to do my bit. That's that picture where they've been shaving the side of that side. You can go ahead. That's the other side. This picture here is the other side of that crossover. You see all that grass and everything? That's the way the other side should be looking like. There shouldn't be nothing, erosion off of that side. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's the last one.
That's the last one?
That's the last one.
All right, but as far as that, everything else is washouts. They have low spots in some of these roads for drainage coming from the wetlands out to the canals, which were put in there long before I was out there. And they work fine. Some places you don't even need a culvert. If that berm is around, we could have made, little lower spots and let the water come over the the works there from once it got so high, it could go over our works, but not really where these people are because they use the roads just too much, you know. And
Just clarifying, use the works of the district too much?
to drive,
Yes.
and to use, they're using them.
Using the
They're
works of the
driving down
district
the
as
works
a,
of the-
yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, as far as the signage, we need the signage up there, you know, and they need to, you know, be told, you know, that if it's illegal to shoot down the works and stuff like that, put it up there. It's illegal to be shooting down these, you know, the sides of these canals.
or drive on them for that.
Well, I don't know if it's illegal to drive on them. That's up to them, you.
Yeah.
But as far as shooting down, I'm pretty positive it's illegal to shoot down these canals. And they're, you know, it's unsafe, but I drive everywhere with my lights on and everything. And, you know, I'll bring to your attention what I see, what's pressing. And I don't want to take up much of your time. I know everybody's got somewhere else to be. And as far as what I do with the subcontractors, I'm going to get out, take a lot of pictures of this grass, and I got to do a lot of driving around to where they sell tractors because I want the right people out there with the right equipment. I need bat wings. I need bank cutters. And as we did when I was here, we only cut back the hollies and everything like that every 2 years to save money. And in January and February, the grass is dead. It's easier, you know, it's not tall green grass. When I started out there, the grass was this high. It was over my hood of a four-wheel drive truck. I mean, I could drive down there. I was hitting holes I didn't even know because nobody did it before I came, I guess, because it didn't look like it. But this is pretty wore down where everybody's at, but it gets to the west and we've got the grass growing up. It's not out of hand yet. I know Zach mowed it not too long ago and mowed the flat because I went out there. I ride, oh yeah, and I went to the Pratt Whitney Road to see about the culverts there to see how the flow was coming out of there, which they were. They were flowing out there because we had a lot of rain Friday, you know, Saturday and Sunday. So, like, I'll go out there, like, if they're hunting at Hungryland on Tuesday. So what I usually do is I'll go to the west because there's a lot more canals there, and I'll ride those Tuesday. And then on Thursday or Friday, I'll go to the east where Gate 1 is, and I'll ride those canals. Nobody's hunting in Hungryland, and I'll go the back way over to the other side. And it does take a long time to ride the canals. I'll ride one side, and but that's how I go out there. I'm not having a lot of interaction. It's not bad. I haven't seen many people out there, and I really.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, as usual. Commissioner Marino, just approximately 3 questions for you. Compare the areas that you've observed, we'll say Gate 1, and what are we referring to as the westerly section as?
Gate 7.
7N? Okay.
7 north is that gate.
Gate 1 and Gate 7N. Gate 1 area compared to Gate 7N, how would you generally describe the wear and tear, damage to the district? Is it non-existent in one area?
Really not. There's not bad except for that one culvert at the end where Mr. Beats has some property over across the way where he has cattle in there, 118 acres. And that one culvert there looks like it's been run down a little bit there. I'm not saying he did it because it's all washed out a little bit. He told me last meeting, he says he has brought dirt over there. There's a problem with the cleaning there, to drop some dirt in there.
Yeah, I would agree. 7N, my observation is in terms of financial impacts to the district, minimal.
Well,
Handful of
there's
dirt and a
no
pallet of
interaction.
sod.
There's nobody over there, really.
Right.
I've seen where people have been out there. People have sent me pictures. There is people who are out there who were there when I worked there. So they're, getting pictures, sending me pictures of berry pickers and people out over there driving with side-by-sides at night and stuff like that. And I brought it up to a law, for FWC, and they said there's nothing they can do about it, if they are over, you heard from this sheriff what anybody can do is
Yep.
nothing. And so I'm trying to stay out of the people's business out there. When I was out there before, everybody came to me about their problems with so-and-so and so-and-so. And there's bad actors. They were a lot of bad actors back then. And I'm sure now there's liable to be a lot worse, but I think they've kept it pretty clean. I mean, I went out there before it got locked up, and it was really bad. Around the camps, they had pallets laying around because of the water and everything, and it was pretty, and then they got locked out for a little while. And since they came back in, I think that lockout really scared them. And hopefully it did, because it looks a lot cleaner than it did. And that really surprised me.
Okay. Over to Gate 1. Look at that first 6 miles of perimeter levee that goes around. I'm going from memory. I don't think there's any grass left on there,
Oh,
is
no,
there?
no. Half of that whole front almost has no grass, and around the outside, they don't have no grass. But it looks to me like it's been halfway maintained, because for not having grass on there, you're not gonna grow grass because of all the people out there. But it's really not that washed out. You can see a couple washouts at that big flat pond when you first come in, where
Yep.
people have drove off of that with a side-by-side or a four-wheeler, and it kind of started a washout where they drove off of the edge.
But that washout occurred on a spot that is exclusively the works of the district, as I understand. There is no ambiguity as to whether this is an easement or not. It's,
They're driving off of the berm. The berm is what it is.
Yeah.
Where everybody's got the legal access to get in.
Gotcha.
But when it's so high, it's this high. And when you take a four-wheeler and you do this a couple of times and drive off the side of it to get down into that, you're gonna create a washout.
yeah, okay, and that is just the works of the district there. There's no ambiguity as to whether there's an easement over and across that.
Yeah.
So, period, okay.
It's near as bad as I was put on to be.
A related question to the engineer, does the grass, the vegetation, serve as a function of the works of the district to protect it and prevent erosion?
Yes, excuse me, it stabilizes the soil and it cuts down on the erosion. One thing to point out for the levee from Gate 1, and it's come before this board several times, the easement is dedicated to the public. That makes it wide open.
It's where I'm lost, and I'm sure we have been for many years, and I think that is something that requires clarification. And let me say this, we have 50 foot that is available for this, that, and the other thing. And if you read the language and how this, that, and the other thing are separated by comma, it doesn't say dump them all together into one big spot. It says we have an allocation of space for ingress, egress, drainage incidental thereto, and utilities, I guess a row of telephone poles. Is that a correct understanding?
That's the general description of most of the easements in Palmar.
Okay, so I've also been told that Martin County has accepted the works of the district, and I assume this is in lieu of a formal permitting process that would have occurred with installation of these canals in the works?
You're going back before a lot of our time, so I can't answer that.
Yeah,
I don't think Martin County ever provided any approvals to Palmar. And they weren't required. They did require a water management district approval, which is actually what stopped Palmar.
okay. So I guess the question really becomes, considering grass, considering sod as a functional part of the works, are the district levies and works compromised for purposes outside of the recorded and assigned function?
I'm not sure I follow your question.
Are the works of the district being damaged by activities outside of what the district?
The levee is slowly eroded. It's getting lower and lower, just due to traffic.
Okay.
In other words, yes.
Yes.
All right, our responsibilities are to maintain a levee. Our responsibilities are not to maintain a roadway. As a matter of fact, if I understand it correctly, we are prohibited from doing so. We are prohibited from building a road. Is that correct? A roadway for the general public, to be precise. Yeah, okay, we're prohibited from doing that.
I don't know if you're prohibited from doing it, but yeah.
I think that probably needs to be defined, because what we have is an easement that is sitting possibly on top of the works of the districts. How do we separate those issues, and how do we get out of road maintenance or road building activities? Right now, it's kind of being stuck to us, pardon me, but we are being forced to consider those activities. Do we just completely ignore the fact that we need to fill in these holes and they're going to happen again because somebody's driving on them? You know, we have to have a plan, and we need to clarify that.
Well, but our plan is that we have to repair and maintain the works of the district. And if there's erosion like this, then we need to take care of it.
How do we, and
Correct.
And do we have a method for preventing the reoccurrence of that damage?
No.
In that particular reach, no.
No, but we do have to repair what has been breached now.
Yes.
It's interesting, and I'm not sure that I completely understand it, because as I see it, there is a 50-foot space which contains the district. There is also a 50-foot space that was allocated for an ingress-egress easement, but was never installed. I'm not saying we have any ability to deny the existence or the installation of that ingress-egress easement. What I'm saying is that if we have a levee, it's either designed to tolerate the impacts it's seeing, or it continues to suffer damage by we not doing the things that are required to design it properly. Are we neglecting design standards, and we're coming up with a substandard structure that's going to cost us money year after year after year? Hopefully that's a clear question.
Well, it would be difficult to end up paving that particular stretch.
It would be impossible, as I
We're
understand.
not paving anything, so.
Yeah, that's not our responsibility.
Mr. Cummings, may I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Would you sit down with our engineer and our manager, ask them your questions, and maybe they can get some research to you for them?
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may, Commissioner Marino, on that issue, I would remind Mr. Higgins and Mr. McElligott that your previous attorney wrote a memo that I believe the board has since adopted as its official policy about the extent of which this board can use its works of the district for ingress and egress. And I would also caution anybody, and I'm sure Mr. Higgins didn't mean this, but, he's talking about the easements and that it's wide open. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't mean that he's reviewed those easements and it means it's wide open for all kinds of vehicular traffic at all times. So what the extent of those easements, is quite the legal issue to be resolved. And it may be resolved very soon. I don't know. I know there's some ongoing court cases that touch on these issues. So we'll follow that and let you know.
And I don't know, but I think the idea of the survey was to help with some of that also, I believe, the person. So we may get more answers after we get that legal survey.
Yeah, providing
Going.
definition via the survey.
So at this time, for the maintenance supervisor, during his status report, he showed us some areas he's deemed concern. Is there any action that we need to take regarding the areas that TJ showed us the pictures of today?
Well, I think if we don't repair them, they're just going to get worse.
The only caution I have is that there are some planned low water crossings that is actually intended for, instead of driving all the way up and around a canal, about halfway, there's a low water crossing where four-wheelers could actually go across. If it's sitting adjacent to a culvert, no, that's not one of them.
So is it the engineer's opinion that we have low water crossings for to the works of the district that are to be used?
Yeah, it's,
So you're using it for, I guess, to simplify my question, if you and I were to go out on a four-wheeler, there's actually areas built where you and I would cross in the four-wheeler while working on the works of the district?
yes.
Okay.
But the ones in the picture, we do not believe are those. They're too close to the regular crossings.
Yeah, that was what I was saying. They have low spots in the road for water to cross.
Okay.
Well, for those that are not, they need to be repaired.
Yeah, that's not, that was
So-
man-made and,
Yeah,
me, this hunting season and everything, I wouldn't, if you wanted to work on them, there's not really enough to do anything. I would try to, because when I look for a mower, I'm looking for everybody, a mower to do everything. As far as the last mower I had there was great. He brought in heavy equipment, he did everything.
But mowing and repairing this are two different things.
Yeah, would bid that different. But that would be, the best time is after all this action, what's gonna be out there for the next couple of months.
But then there's going to be more damage.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it'll
it's
be
all gonna
more costly.
Because, as soon as it rains, it's all just gonna go, but that's.
Well, how does this get repaired then?
So CJ, are you recommending that we do these repairs after we do the mowing in the beginning of the year?
Try to get a mower, when I go looking for mowers, I'm gonna look for everybody.
Somebody that can also do the repairs?
But see, when we did it, when I had my mower bring in heavy equipment, it was a completely different bid, And I don't look at bid. I tell the guys, I give them your number, I give them everything. I say, send the bid to there. Because I don't want to know. I take them out there, I show them what I like and what I want. And I say, send the bid to you.
Well, I believe so. The topic we're at this moment are these pictures that you showed us where there's these major washouts. They need to be repaired. Is this something that needs to be repaired? Is this something that we need to repair now, or is it your recommendation that we wait till after the mowing to repair these?
Well, we can repair them now if you want. It's up to you all, but I'm just saying,
So would you have the ability,
washed out.
right, would you have the ability to get a quote from a contractor to do these repairs?
All this is like a loader,
One,
and they can get the overfill from the side. This thing here, I would try to bring in a backhoe or something and get some of that dirt, the sand, what they pushed down into the water, because if you don't make that deep again, they're just gonna,
So then, do you think you could bring back a proposal to our December meeting to get these repairs done?
Yeah, sure.
Can we get at least 2 proposals?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm not looking for one. I'd look for 3.
All right, so the direction of the board is have TJ get a couple of proposals to make the repairs on the items that he showed us pictures for today, and we'll bring that back to the next meeting.
I'll take pictures of what they're bidding on or whatever, and
One more quick question for you and a comment. Can you drive all of the works of the district? Some of those, and I say that, this is a picture posted on a semi-public media of a car sunk in one of those holes along the works of the district. It was actually sunk and flooded out. And
that's one of the spots at the last canal, what's going east and west from Gate 1, where it's real low and the water flows out the end of the canal, or it comes in from the flat pond, into there. That's where those deeper holes are, and that's from wear and tear from vehicles going through there. And there's some vehicles that shouldn't be out there. If you want to take a little car out there and you want to go through water that you don't know how deep it is, and
there's no vehicles that should be on the works of the district, period. Yeah.
You're going to have this all the time.
All
And I
right.
tell you, when we do this big one here,
I would not drive through some of those puddles. Whether I can or not, I don't know, but they're an obstruction to conducting maintenance and survey.
I don't know if that's entirely true, but
Okay.
Depends on the type of vehicle you have, yeah.
So, I guess I'll make a motion, Mr. McGilligot, that our maintenance supervisor will obtain at least 2 to 3 quotes to repair the damages as presented at the next December meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you very much. The pictures were very nice. I appreciate that.
Moving on. That was our last status report. All right, so moving on, the financial report. The financial report's in your books on page 18. It's almost identical to the proposed budget, or the amended budget that I showed you earlier. So if there was no other questions, we can move on. There's no action required there. Consider the invoices. The invoices are on page 19. These are the invoices since the last meeting. Hasn't been a whole lot of activity.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Are there any landowner items? Mr. Gaza?
Morning. Zach Gaza, landowner, owner of BMN by Land. As the owner of thousands of acres in Palomar, which I've purchased and I care about, after sitting in the audience watching this meeting and watching the 5 of you and your new maintenance supervisor have no idea where the works of the district are not, where Palomar easements are not, is concerning. So please take this as notice that those of you who are out there, who are having my cameras, TJ, you've been spending a lot of time out there recently. Kevin, I know you're out there. Lou, you're out there. George, do you use your property out there or no?
I definitely visit my property on a regular basis, Mr.
Okay, well, this applies to you too, George. So you are not permitted to be on any of my properties off of a drainage easement or a work of the district. And I'll be considering it trespassing. So I suggest that TJ, you especially,
I haven't been off.
well, I'm glad you know where all the easement lines
I
are.
do know where they are. They're right next to those.
Well, some of those canals are not in the right spot, TJ. Anyway, you talked about getting a survey, Commissioner Marino. I think that's a great idea, and you might want to keep that in mind when you have your supervisor out there under your permission to go driving around on a truck and on a four-wheeler. Thank you.
Commissioner Marino, may I ask a question?
Certainly, it's not normal, but go ahead.
You mentioned be respectful of your properties, I agree. And the one case, if you speak directly to me, I think you have a lot that is immediately north of my lot. Those lines are a little blurry. I understand what you're requesting, but if I'm out there as a commissioner or even as a property owner, how do I know where your property line is? How does anybody know?
Well, my surveyor is out there 3 to 5 days a week surveying my properties. I'll be sure to reflag my property adjacent to yours, so you know.
Perfect. We'll know exactly what we can and can't do and be able to respect your desires.
And I hope everybody going forth respects that they shouldn't be on other people's property. Thank you. Mr. Gaza, you can have a good day.
All right. Any other landowner items? Any items from the public? No items from the public. Any board member comments?
I have one real quick one that concerns our finances. I think sometime in the future that we should consider taking at least 50% of what we have in the bank and moving it into a more rewarding financial vehicle.
And I can tell you that we have been, with the interest rate environment as of about 6 months ago, we have been actively changing some of our banks for some of our other districts to accomplish better interest rates. I will remind the board, since these are government, or I should say, since these are public funds, we are restricted as to the type of instruments we are allowed to keep funds in. They have to be very low, virtually no risk instruments. So we can't go buy in Bitcoin or anything with the money. I can tell you that right now. But we have been checking different banks and moving monies around for other districts to achieve as good a interest rate as we can, considering the restraints of public funds. So I will make a comment to our person who deals with our banks at our office to look into Palomar's accounts for that same reason.
I have 2 agenda items that I would like to advance for our next meeting. One would be a discussion regarding gates requested by landowners that may occur on the district works. The reason for which is to protect the district works and to protect property owners from unacceptable use of district works or unintended use of district works. Okay. Second would be, what are the financial impacts to the districts of the damages that are occurring on the works? And we somehow put a budget item to figure out how much we've got to spend to put things back together. And the final would be, what methods does Palomar have to protect the district works? And perhaps we examine the methods that are being employed to destroy the district works.
Okay, so to be clear, the first item that you would like on a future agenda is
Installation of gates at the request of property owners.
installation of gates. At request, okay. And then what are the financial impacts of damage done to the works, and what are the remedies?
Yeah, what are the remedies? How do we protect our investment once it's made? And I think that also requires an examination of what is creating that unintended use. And, I'll give you 2 examples. One might be judicial mandate. The second might be, I don't know, perhaps a good neighbor policy that somebody intended to let people. But, I believe we need to examine why it's happening so that we can examine how to stop it.
If there's no objections from the rest of the board, I can add those to the December agenda.
No objection.
Any other board member comments?
I have a couple, maybe not necessarily agenda items, but Mr. McGilligot, and if, with the desire of the rest of the board, I'd like to have our website looked at by our legal counsel. So if the 2 of you guys could get together, you don't really, it's been short term, I know she's just coming on.
Right, yeah. So at the last meeting, obviously, the board talked about things that we wanted to take on and off of the website. Mr. Dan Harrell, who was with the new district attorney's firm at the last meeting, asked for me to leave some of those items up. They actually wanted to download them themselves before they were off the website, because they'll be easier than getting the actual documents physically. So we are still going to be making changes to the website. We haven't gotten to it yet. We're giving them time to get all that stuff downloaded.
And Mr. McGill, I'd like to bring an item back about the website, maybe the first calendar quarter of next year. I know we may not have a January, but I'd like to, let you and legal counsel look at that. And also look at possibly adding a YouTube link for folks to look at our meeting online like we're doing now.
Yes.
In conjunction with the county. So that's my first item. The second thing I'd like to talk, I just had a hard time. I was going to the website. I was looking for policy and procedures as it relates to how we conduct business as a board. And I don't know if we have that. We may. If you do, if you could send it to me. If not, that might be another topic we need to bring for the next calendar quarter as to, like 3 minutes per public speakers and how do we address, those type of things, because I didn't see that. And then the last thing I'm glad the engineer brought up is pay rates. I would like to be sent the information as to when were all the contracts put out for public procurement. Engineer, your contract. I know we just did the maintenance. I know we're just doing the legal. So I just want that for information only, just so it's in my mind.
Okay, so to be clear, so we're going to bring back a website review early next year. And that will be after, but in the meantime, I can get with the attorney and we can go over stuff now. Okay, so we'll bring back a website review early next year. We're going to make an agenda item for looking into making policy, board policies.
I guess I'll rephrase the way I want to say it. I'd like for you and legal counsel to discuss if it's appropriate or if we have policies and procedures as it relates to conducting business.
So this board has never gone through and made anything official. It's just kind of been very informal over the many years that it's existed. There have been certain situations where a board has made specific requests. I know several years ago, we had a board member who had a tendency to ask for things to be put on the agenda 2 days before the meeting. And so the board said, hey, you need to give the professionals a couple of weeks if you're going to want to add something to the agenda. Nothing ever made in writing. It's always been just kind of informal. So I would say at this point, if we want to put like the 3-minute talking, we've never had a formal policy for any of that stuff. So if we want to look at doing those type of things, we would just have to go through the process of making formal policy. It's always this district, for as long as I've been involved, which is our company came online over 10 years ago now, almost 15 years ago, it's been very informal.
So I guess it sounds like what I'd like for you to do is discuss with our legal counsel, see what they feel is appropriate, and then probably bring it back as a board item sometime in the first calendar quarter of next year if my other board members would allow. And then the last thing I had asked for was just I don't need it to be an agenda item, I just need it to be maybe information provided as to when the last RFP, public procurement or RFP, whatever was appropriate for the engineer, your contract, and then obviously, we've done the maintenance supervisor, we do the mowing, as well as the legal. So just so we have that information available,
Kind of when the last time
Yeah.
that was all done.
just for information purposes.
You just want me to email that to you?
Yeah, I'm guessing you probably should email the rest of the supervisors if they want, but I would have no problem with an email with that.
You can email all of us with that.
Ruth, I missed one quick note on this Caldwell-Passetti opinion. Does Ruth agree with it, and would that be a future agenda item or something that's?
I would agree that this is something we should discuss.
Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you as what I think we ought to do. So Caldwell-Passetti, my recollection is they wrote 2 memos on this topic. One was undated, and I think it was more recent, and it kind of contradicted the first one. So I'd have to see exactly what memo you're referring to.
Is it the November 2019?
Specific, it is the November 5th, 2019, the one that you speak of, yes, only.
That one was officially adopted by the board maybe last year sometime.
11/19 of last year.
Yeah. So that's the one that I'm familiar with as far as an official memo being adopted by the board. The board actually took action to adopt that memo.
I think the two need to be looked at in comparison to each other in the directive that was supplied to us.
Sure, and you know, and as I recall, Martin County wrote a similar memo to Caldwell Passetti's November 2019 memo as well. So I don't think that is in any way adopted by the board. I don't even know if the board ever saw it. A similar memo to Caldwell Passetti's November 2019 memo as well. So I don't think that is.
Okay.
But we can certainly take a look at all three and see where we land as far as legal advice to the board.
Thank you.
And I don't believe I have the Martin County one, but you can get that, or do you?
I don't know, it was sent to you. so-
Yeah. Oh, what was it actually in a meeting minute? Okay.
We can find it.
Yeah. I'll look back through my emails. I didn't remember if that was something that was brought to a meeting to be official document or not. So.
TJ, this is our comments. What is it that you need?
I just had two questions as far as when I take people out there to bid on these washouts, can I use the spoils of the canals that are on the side to fix these, or are they gonna have to haul in dirt
No, take it right from the canal.
from the spoils from when they did the canals?
First thing to do is to deepen the canal.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what I was
The
gonna
rest
do.
of it can be burn material.
Okay, and then as far as a gate, what's in front of me, what's on the works, am I allowed to put a lock on it? Because it's a works, part of the works.
I think you should have that conversation with our legal department.
That's the only two questions I have.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I have one last thing, and then I just want to know, either from legal or from our management firm, has the transfer of all the files from Caldwell Passetti gone? Has our legal firm has Caldwell Passetti transferred the new files to our current?
No.
They have not.
No, at this point, I actually had a conversation with Ms. Viator just a couple days ago to ask about where we stand with that. Their office is still in the process of gathering the files into boxes that I can pick up. I've told them that I am available to pick up said boxes as soon as they let me know that they are ready, and they informed me that they had several people out recently, and they are hoping to get that done sooner than later.
So if you could just make that part of your status report or one of your status report for our December meeting, I think that should be ample time.
Any other commissioners? Actually, Mike, there are some things on the website that need to be changed that have nothing to do with legal or anything else. Commissioner Hurd pointed it out last month that there's a reference to Commissioner Jenkins on there, and the attorney still says Viator.
Okay, yeah. I can get those updated before
Nothing that
downloads, right?
needs to be done.
Yep.
And, you've had plenty of notice and plenty of time, so I think you need to get them done. And any other comments from our board members? With that, we are adjourned.